The first time I saw the sign, it looked so out of place I thought it had to be a prank. Big red letters on a bright white board screamed, "No trespassing, private property trespassers will be prosecuted." And it was staked right in the middle of my pasture. My pasture. The one my grandfather left me, the one my family had grazed cattle on for 3 generations. I walked over, squinting at the post, and noticed the small print at the bottom. By order of the Sterling Heights HOA. That's when the ice settled in my gut. The pasture wasn't part of the HOA, it never had been. I didn't have to wonder long who was behind it. Karen Whitfield, our HOA president, was a woman who could sniff out a perceived violation from 100 yards away and would use any excuse to plant her flag in someone else's soil. But this was a whole new level. I marched straight to her house, sign still in hand, and rang the bell. She answered wearing that smug little smirk that made you want to slam the door yourself. "Yes?" she asked sweetly, her eyes already scanning me like I was the one intruding. "You put this on my land," I said, holding up the sign. She didn't even blink. "That land borders Sterling Heights, and under the HOA's Community Preservation Initiative, we have the right to protect neighborhood aesthetics and safety." I nearly laughed in her face. "A pasture is not a threat to your community, Karen, and you have no jurisdiction over it." She folded her arms. "We'll see what the county says." Then she shut the door. I knew what she was playing at. If she could create a paper trail implying that the land was somehow under HOA control, it would be easier for her to make a grab for it later. What she didn't know was that I had more than ownership on my side. I had the original 1934 deed with detailed meets and bounds descriptions, signed and sealed, plus aerial survey maps from the agricultural office. And thanks to my cousin in zoning enforcement, I knew exactly how to make that information count. The next week, I filed a formal complaint with the county, attaching photos of the sign on my land and the deed proving my ownership. While I waited for the bureaucracy to churn, I decided on a more visible response. If Karen wanted to play property games, I was going to end them in a way the entire neighborhood could see. I called in a crew I'd worked with before on fencing projects, handed them a map, and pointed to a rectangle around her house, every inch of it on my side of the property line. Here's where the twist came in. 2 years earlier, Karen had bought the house thinking her backyard extended further than it didn't. A weird quirk of the original plat meant that 3 sides of her lot backed directly onto mine, separated only by a narrow strip of grass she assumed was hers. That strip was now about to become the foundation for an 8-foot concrete wall. We started at dawn on a Tuesday. By mid-morning, the sound of concrete saws and shovels filled the street. Karen stormed out in a bathrobe, demanding to know what was going on. "Building on my land," I said calmly, showing her the permits. "Completely legal." Her face turned crimson. "You can't block me in," she screeched. I smiled. "I'm not blocking you in. I'm simply marking my property. Exactly like you tried to do to mine." Neighbors began gathering to watch, some pretending to sip coffee while clearly enjoying the drama. The wall rose fast, first cinder block, then rebar, then a smooth coat of stucco. By sunset, the section along her backyard was done, casting a long shadow over her prized rose bushes. That night, I got a knock on my door. It wasn't the police, it was Tom from 2 houses down. "You know," he said with a grin, "if you connect the sidewalls too, she'll have no direct view of the street from her yard." I hadn't planned on it at first, but after Karen spent the next morning screaming at the workers and threatening to have their licenses revoked, I decided Tom was onto something. By the second morning, the crew had poured the footings for the side sections of the wall. The low hum of the cement mixer was like music to my ears, and judging by the cluster of neighbors lingering with lawn chairs at the end of the street, I wasn't the only one enjoying the show. Karen came out in full war paint, hair lacquered, lipstick sharp enough to cut glass, and a clipboard clutched in her hands like a weapon. She marched straight toward the foreman, waving the papers in his face. "These workers are trespassing," she barked. The foreman barely glanced at her before pointing to the property stakes we'd hammered in the day before, each one clearly marked with my name and parcel number. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "we are well within the property lines. You might want to take that up with the county." Her face twisted. "I am the authority here," she snapped. But her voice cracked just enough to give away the panic underneath. I walked up behind her, camera rolling. "Karen, remember when you told me, 'We'll see what the county says?' Well, the county said yes to me." I held up the official stamped letter from zoning enforcement, which I just picked up that morning. "This wall is fully permitted. It's staying." Her eyes darted from the paper to the growing wall, now waist-high on both sides of her house. "You can't just," she began. But I cut her off. "I can. And I am. And it's exactly what you tried to do to me, except I'm doing it legally." The smattering of laughter from the gathered neighbors was salt in her wound. She stormed back inside, slamming her door hard enough to rattle her shutters. By the end of the week, the wall was completely clean, seamless barrier encircling 3 sides of her lot, with only her driveway open to the street. From her patio, she now had a stunning view of stucco. The roses were in perpetual shade. Her entertainment gazebo now felt like a prison yard. That weekend, I got a certified letter from her lawyer claiming loss of enjoyment and diminished property value due to my spite fence. My reply was simple: a copy of the survey map, the county's permit approval, and a screenshot of her own "No Trespassing" sign on my pasture. A month later, the county magistrate dismissed her complaint outright. In fact, the magistrate's written opinion included a delicious line: "The petitioner appears to be experiencing the natural consequences of her own conduct." Word of the ruling spread fast. HOA attendance plummeted, and the few board members who had stood by her started resigning one by one. By the time the annual meeting rolled around, Karen no longer had the votes to remain president. The motion to remove her passed in under 3 minutes, with her sitting in the room, lips pressed so tight they turned white. She didn't say a word when the gavel came down, just gathered her papers and walked out. Without Karen, the neighborhood started breathing again. People replanted gardens she'd ordered ripped out. Kids set up lemonade stands without fear of being cited for commerce. I even invited the community over for a barbecue in my Pastorino. HOA permission slips required. As for the wall, it's still there. I keep it painted and clean, not as a monument to spite, but as a reminder that boundaries literal and legal matter. The funny thing is, after Karen moved out 6 months later, her house sold for a lower price than she'd paid. The new owners? Lovely people. They even thanked me for the privacy. So tell me, was building that wall a justified stand for my rights? Or should I have taken the high road and left Karen's property line as open as she thought mine should be?